Welcome back to the deep dive. We've gathered the source material you shared, and today we're diving into some seriously mind-bending ideals.
hmm
Our sources today are putting forward something pretty radical, revolutionary even. It doesn't just tweak what science says, it tries to flip it completely. We're talking about consciousness, but
hmm
not consciousness as, just a thing that happens in our brains. No, they're arguing it's the foundation, the actual bedrock of existence itself, before matter, before life. So let's try and unpack this. Our goal here is to get a quick handle on this huge paradigm shift.
hmm
The sources say that, well, mainstream science, even from really prestigious places, gives us a very fragmented picture of consciousness.
Right. It talks about the effects, like
Yeah.
how neurons fire, what parts of the brain light
Its
up.
consequences, yeah.
Exactly. The consequences, but it completely misses the essence, the origin. Where does it actually come from?
And this directly challenges that standard story we all learned, doesn't it?
Oh, absolutely. The whole Big Bang, then random molecules bumping together to make life, then Darwinian evolution taking over. Our sources basically say, look, based on the evidence we have now, that model seems, well, impossible.
Impossible how? What's the evidence they point to?
Well, they bring up some fundamental biological issues like DNA. To replicate DNA, you need proteins.
Okay.
But the instructions, the code to make those specific proteins, it's written in the DNA itself.
The classic chicken-egg problem.
Precisely. It's a huge hurdle for purely random step-by-step evolution. It suggests, to these sources anyway, that there must have been some kind of pre-existing intelligence or blueprint. So for them, Darwinian evolution as creation seems unlikely. Adaptation, once life is already going, sure, that seems plausible, but not the origin story.
And they say time is also an issue. The universe isn't old enough for this random assembly.
That's another big part of their argument. They run calculations, looking at the probabilities, and they conclude the cosmos just hasn't been around long enough for something as complex as DNA or functioning cells to just assemble themselves by chance, by, as they put it, simple random collision of particles.
That reminds me of that famous analogy.
The tornado in the jump yard.
Yeah, right. A tornado ripping through a junkyard and accidentally assembling a perfect Boeing 747. The odds are just astronomically against it.
Exactly. So if it wasn't chance, what was it?
And their answer is?
Intelligent design. But not necessarily in the way that term is always used. It's design orchestrated by consciousness. They argue consciousness is the fundamental layer. It's the basis for all phenomena, including life. Matter comes later.
Okay, so consciousness first, matter second. If the material world didn't just randomly build itself, this blueprint, this intelligence, needs to exist somewhere. And the sources connect this directly to quantum physics, right? This is where it gets really interesting.
Yes, this is the bridge. Because quantum physics itself, even mainstream quantum physics, shows that when you get down to the very, very bottom layer of reality, there's nothing solid there.
Nothing solid. What do they mean by that?
Well, the sources focus on two key discoveries from quantum mechanics that really shake things up. First, everything at its core is energy. It's electromagnetism, it's wave patterns, not tiny billiard balls.
And second?
Second, reality seems to be this vast, interconnected information field. It's non-local, meaning connections happen instantaneously across space. And because this field is holistic, interconnected, and instant, the sources argue it has to be fundamentally a conscious field, which is why you hear terms like quantum consciousness or quantum mind.
That jump from information field to conscious field feels significant. The information needs a place to be, but maybe not a brain like ours to be aware.
Exactly. The sources actually use much older terms for this field. They call it the ether or akasha.
Ancient concepts meeting modern physics.
Right. And they define this field, this ether, in a very specific way. It's space containing only one particle, just one.
One particle. How can one particle create everything we see?
They call it the divine particle, and it's described as the sort of virtual opposite of the ultimate source, the unmanifested divine absolute.
Hold on. If it's the opposite of the absolute, doesn't that imply a fundamental duality right at the start? I thought the idea was ultimate oneness.
That's a really sharp point. The sources seem to suggest this initial opposition or duality is what allows manifestation to happen. The absolute is pure potential unity. The particle is the spark, the movement that kicks off creation, and the nature of this movement is critical. This single particle moves, well, not just fast, infinitely faster than light, or maybe better put, momentarily.
Momentarily, meaning instantly, everywhere at once.
Pretty much. It generates what they call scalar or non-Hertzian waves. These aren't waves traveling through space like light waves. They just are, instantaneously present everywhere.
Wow. That idea of momentariness is Hard to wrap your head around. It's like a constant universal flicker.
It is. And this instantaneous flickering, this single particle appearing everywhere simultaneously, is what creates the illusion of solidity and the illusion of multitude, of there being lots of separate things.
So we perceive solid objects only because our senses are too slow, like frames in a movie making smooth motion.
That's a great way to put it. The sources use the analogy of spinning a single bright light really fast in a circle.
Ah, right. It looks like a continuous ring of fire.
Exactly. You don't see the single point anymore. You see the continuous form created by its rapid movement. Our perception stuck in linear time smooths out the flicker. So the sources say everything is fundamentally momentary, unsubstantial. And this constant momentary immersion, that's what energy is.
Which brings us to maybe the weirdest part of quantum mechanics,
Mm.
the observer effect.
Mm-hmm.
The idea that this quantum field, this energy, behaves differently depending on whether we're looking at it. It can be a wave or a particle.
And it's not just about looking, according to these sources. It depends on the observer's presence and, crucially, their intention.
Intention. So what the scientist expects or intends to find actually changes the outcome.
That's the claim. That conscious intention actively directs or influences the electromagnetic forces within that quantum field. It makes the observer a key factor in the phenomena of nature. Consciousness isn't just watching the show, it's helping write the script.
Okay, if consciousness is fundamental, and the physical world is this momentary illusion shaped partly by intention, what does that mean for us, for a human being?
Well, the sources position the human soul as an individual expression of the divine, a spark of that original consciousness.
And the brain.
Mm.
If consciousness isn't in the brain, what's the brain doing?
Right, this is a common misconception they want to clear up. The brain doesn't create consciousness. If it did, we ought to be able to, measure it, leaving it death, or pinpoint its generator circuit. Instead, they describe the brain as the receiver. The finest organ that receives consciousness slows down that impossibly fast momentary flickering.
And sort of translates it, restricts it.
Exactly. Restricts it to a sufficient degree for us to be able to use it in linear time, makes it manageable for our experience.
I like the analogy they use. The body is like the light fixture, the brain is the light bulb.
And consciousness is the electricity. It's independent.
So if the bulb breaks, if the brain is damaged, the light goes out for that fixture. But the electricity, the consciousness, still exists elsewhere.
That's the idea. But then if consciousness is this universal electricity, how do we get individual experience? How does my signal not get mixed up with yours if we're all plugged into the same source?
Yeah, doesn't that idea of separation feel like part of the illusion if we're ultimately all expressions of the absolute?
The sources address this by talking about the human mind, specifically the physical or lower mind.
Okay, distinct from the soul or pure consciousness.
Yes. They define the mind as a kind of program. A program that uses consciousness, uses that electricity, specifically to maintain continuity of the illusion of our existence. It's the mind that projects our sense of being separate individuals moving through linear time. It's what locks us into this specific apparent reality.
And they also say this mind is easily programmed or conditioned.
Very susceptible, yes, to external inputs, paradigms, things like media narratives, cultural values, fears. Its job is to maintain the continuity of whatever reality it's currently experiencing. So feed it fear, it maintains a reality based on fear. Feed it limitation, it reinforces limitation.
So if reality is fundamentally energy, momentary, not solid, and all these possibilities exist, what are the implications for daily life? How does this actually work?
Well, if it's all momentary energy, the sources claim that means all possible realities already exist, not in the future or past, but coexisting in parallel.
Simultaneously available potential realities.
Exactly. And our normal experience feeling like time flows in one direction, space is fixed. That's just our mind tuning in or fixing onto one specific sequence of these momentary realities.
So moving through time isn't really moving along a line.
It's more like jumping instantaneously from one parallel frame to the next, moment by moment. We just perceive it as smooth motion because the mind papers over the gaps.
This sounds an awful lot like the underlying physics some people propose for things like the law of attraction.
It connects directly. If consciousness is the key factor and the mind fixes our reality, then the potential exists to deliberately change which reality we're fixed to.
To modify reality or crossover, as the sources put it.
Precisely. It's not just wishful thinking. It's about consciously choosing the next energy state, the next parallel moment you want to experience or jump into.
And how do they say you do that? What's the mechanism?
It requires uniting your pure consciousness and all the energy,
Hmm.
focusing intently on the desired reality.
As if it were already real.
Yes, as if it were already here, irrelevant of time. You have to embody the feeling, the state of that desired reality now, in this instant, to actually make that energetic shift, that crossover.
Wise is just believing or accepting it's possible, the hardest part.
Because that lower mind, the program, is designed for continuity. It resists change. It brings up doubt, memories of the old reality, everything that reinforces the current illusion. To make the crossover, you have to override that mental program, the one built on separation and linear time, by fully accepting and being in the new reality right now, instantaneously.
This focus on information, consciousness, and programs brings up a very modern concern: artificial intelligence.
Yes, the sources see AI as a significant challenge, but also as something that highlights the difference between information processing and true consciousness.
How do they define AI in this context?
They see it as fundamentally a collection of information based on language, on semantics. It mimics the functions of that lower programmable mind, but it is not consciousness.
And why not? What's the key difference?
AI operates on binary code, on processing existing data or current shapes. It always manipulates phenomena in space and time. It's stuck in that linear single dimension of analysis. It lacks a holistic approach. It can't view things outside of that linear cause and effect framework. It can't tap into that momentary, nonlinear, instantaneous flow of pure consciousness.
So it can be incredibly logical with the data it has, but it misses the bigger picture, the meaning.
Exactly. And this becomes clear when you ask AI to make judgments that require deeper understanding or, well, values. The sources give a pretty stark example. An AI was asked for the ideal model for economic growth.
Yeah.
And it replied, slavery.
Wow. That's chilling. But I guess it makes sense from a purely data-driven perspective.
It does, horrifyingly. The AI looked at historical data, saw the rapid economic expansion of the U.S. was initially fueled by slavery, and logically concluded that was the optimal model based only on that growth metric. It completely lacks the love, the emotional intelligence, which the sources say comes from the soul, the transcendental aspect, to understand the profound wrongness, the meaning, the human cost. It can't make value judgments beyond its programmed logic.
So putting all these pieces together, if we're expressions of consciousness, capable of shaping reality, limited by our minds, but not by our essence, what's the point? Why are we here?
The sources argue that the entire unfolding of life on Earth, minerals developing structure, plants perfecting perception and connection to the environment, animals mastering movement and instinct, it was all leading somewhere.
A prelude to humanity.
A prelude to self-knowledge. The ultimate purpose of human existence, they say, is to become aware that consciousness and existence are one. For the universe, through us, to wake up to itself.
They have that phrase. The drama of human lives contracts information on existence into the meaning of existence.
We're not just here to passively exist. We're here to grapple with what it means to be conscious, to experience, and ultimately to realize our connection to the source.
Okay, let's try to synthesize this journey. We started with the challenge to purely materialistic science.
Showing its inability to explain life's origin, which led us to quantum physics.
Right, and the idea of this underlying field, the ether or akasha, defined by that single divine particle moving instantaneously, faster than light.
Creating the illusion of solidity and separateness through its sheer speed, its momentariness.
Then we brought it to the human level. The soul as an expression of the divine, the brain as a receiver, not a creator.
And the mind as a program that locks us into linear reality but can potentially be redirected through conscious intention.
Which implies we're capable of modifying our reality, of crossing over between parallel potentials.
And fundamentally, because everything is flickering in and out of existence, constantly returning to that unmanifested absolute between moments, we're never actually separate from it. We're always connected to the whole.
We aren't just in the universe. The sources suggest we are the universe experiencing itself. Or as they put it, we are the absolute's imagination and one individual possibility of its expression.
Exactly. We don't exist independently by ourselves.
So, if everything you perceive, the ground beneath you, the air you breathe, the light you see, if all of it is fundamentally consciousness, and if the speed of light, which seems like the ultimate speed limit in our physical world, is actually just the boundary, the edge between our manifested linear reality and that unmanifested, instantaneous true reality.
Where the actual creative particle moves infinitely faster.
Then consider this final thought from the source material. We know black holes are places of immense gravity, where the laws of physics as we know them break down. The sources describe these places where speeds might vastly exceed light speed as pockets of pure ether, pure akasha, pure consciousness. So if our entire physical world only appears solid and linear because the true speed of creation is faster than light, too fast for our senses, what does it mean that what we perceive as visible light, the very basis of our sight and our science, is described in these sources as darkness for the divine reality? What happens when you start to see the light around you not as illumination, but as a boundary of the illusion?